well versed in this subject at a particular time.
Well, I don't know if I'm well versed, but I teach the play. I teach it frequently. This is the fourth time this winter, so I'm telling the ladies at lunch, I practically have it memorized, and it's amazing when you go through this thing 3 times in a row. You find it takes part of your general conversation. So when she asked if I do 2 sessions, I thought I could do it without losing too much. I'm on vacation now, and only next week takes me away from work. It is an interesting phenomenon to pick up Shakespeare play and do it over and over, because even after 4 times in a row, I find I'm seeing new things. I got a couple of great insights the last 2 times I did it. I'm wondering if today I will as well. I assume that most of you have already encountered Lear at one time or another, so that the general plot is not surprising to you, and I can skip over some passages, because otherwise in 2 sessions we will not make our way to the end. And it's hard for me to skip over anything when I'm doing Shakespeare, but I'll give it a try. I want to set the scene, though, before we begin the play, by talking about the context of the play from Shakespeare's perspective, and the play as a tragedy. Okay, so we kind of get a little angle of vision on it. And I think maybe the first thing we should talk about is the fact that this is a Renaissance play. In other words, it's a play written, let's say 1600, right? And that it reflects Shakespeare's Renaissance perceptions of the universe, of the world. Modern 20th century readers often have a real difficulty with that, because we want Shakespeare to represent our sensibilities, and he won't. Which is not to say that the emotions and the experiences in the play are alien from us. They're not. They're identical to ours. Shakespeare is a father who makes a big mistake, as is Gloucester, and you know the phenomenon of family warfare and hatred and striving for position. If you take Edmund, reasonless horror. All of it's very common in the 20th century. But the structure of the play, that is what the play is talking about, the way the tragedy evolved, is strictly out of the Renaissance. And we can't assume a romantic or post-romantic attitude towards life and towards what one must do or what one must not do. I think it's the major difficulty we as 20th century people have with Shakespeare. So I want to pick up 2 points to begin with. One is to argue to you that Shakespeare is, and I've never taught a Shakespeare play to this group in all these years, so I haven't done this with you. Shakespeare is essentially, as a Renaissance writer, a strongly conservative man. That is, he supports a traditional Renaissance perception of what one must be and what one must do to be a successful or a happy person. And what that means is that if you go back to the history and evolution of our culture, before the Romantic period especially, the satisfactory living of a life is a living of a life which achieves the best life it can live in the context of where it was meant to be. Really, before Wordsworth and Coleridge, the concept that we have that every person has almost an obligation or a duty to make the most of him or herself, whatever it might be, rise in the world. Essentially an alien concept. The 18th century, the 17th century, go back to Chaucer, will look at people's lives and they will find tragedy in people who are unhappy in their proper place. And tragedy in the Renaissance, comedy as well, is a consequence of people saying, I'm not happy being a miller. Right? And you know, so many of our names are names that go back to occupation. If your name is Miller, it meant historically that your father was a miller. And that meant that you were to be a miller. And if you wanted happiness in this world, you damn well better be happy milling grain, because you're not going to be a king, no matter how much you want. And when we teach this, especially the high school kids, who are less abstract in their feeling, this is offensive. I mean, why should I be, right, born engineer just because my dad is? I want to be a poet. You know how children, we call the generation gap or conflict in generations. Shakespeare would not understand that. And neither would Chaucer, neither would Spencer. That this concept of going someplace, becoming a king, is simply alien. So when he writes a play, it's a play which is from the concept, when he turns to tragedy or when he turns to comedy, of focusing on people who fail in one way or another, either in a comedic fashion, right, or in a tragic fashion, to be the person they were meant to be. And when you take comedy, you come to something like Romeo and Juliet. Right? We often read that play wrong. I'm absolutely convinced of it. We think of it as as a lovely romance and great tragedy because these people who are destined to be lovers and husband and wife are destroyed in the process, and how cruel the society is. And I'm pretty much convinced that that's not true at all. Shakespeare's saying, look how stupid these kids are, right? They have no business falling in love. You cannot marry in the Renaissance for love and discount family, position, tradition, cultural enmities. You're not to admire Romeo and Juliet. They're fools. And of course they die, and it is sad, it's a tragedy, there's no doubt about that. But the reason it's a tragedy is because these kids don't understand what marriage is for. Marriage is business, right? And in Chaucer, Shakespeare, you don't separate, let's put it this rearrangement, you don't connect business with pleasure. And there's one thing being married, which is business, another thing having a lover, which is pleasure. And if you can love your husband or wife, all the better, but you don't confuse those two things. And that's just not done. So that's why it's sad. When you come to comedies, you read or watch something like Twelfth Night, so much of the humor in that, when it plays with love, is the humor of people not being what they were meant to be, and right, falling in love with a woman who's disguised as a guy, and it's really ridiculous because they're not in their proper position. When it comes to tragedy, what you see is over and over Shakespeare presenting a classical concept of tragedy. The person who is not satisfied with what he is. MacBeth is probably the classically shaped tragedy by Shakespeare. A man who's very successful, obviously, and one of the #1 people in the kingdom. And he was intended by birth and position and ability to be a thane, a general, right? Thane of Glamis, right? Thane of Cawdor. He was not intended to be king. But his pride, which is the classic flaw, got in the way, and he decided if I could be a good general or a good thane, why can't I be a good king? And there are certain issues which you have to accept as almost beyond conversation. Right? It doesn't make any difference how good a King Duncan is, or how good a king his sons would be. Right? If you're meant to be thane, you're meant to be thane. So he breaks from his proper position, egged on by his wicked wife, kills the king, assumes the throne, and then, of course, the tragedy follows. And the shape of the classic Greek tragedy is like that. You probably remember from college having it taught to you. The person who is the heroic, tragic figure, begins the play by committing himself to some horrible error of pride, as Macbeth does when he decides that maybe being king would be fun. And he, with the connivance of his wife, kills Duncan, right? Acquires the crown, goes about solidifying his position, kills Banquo, makes a few mistakes along the way, Fleance fleas, or flies, or Fleance flies, fleas, leads. But there is a point where the accumulation of the consequences of his act, right, overwhelm him. And you remember the great speech in Macbeth where he says, it doesn't make any difference if I go back or go forward. I'm halfway across the lake of blood. Remember? I might as well go on. And he commits a few other excesses, all a result of the opening of this gate, right? Killing the Macduff family, that horrible scene where Lady Macduff and the children are murdered. And it redounds to his destruction at the end. So when you watch a classic tragedy, you see the success, and then you see the failure, the destruction as a result of that weakness. One of Shakespeare's interesting features as a dramatist is that it's obvious he's well aware of this. Macbeth is so neatly contrived. He has a genius at manipulating the whole classic tragedy. If you take the play Hamlet, who is the tragic hero? If you take that shade, who is the one who the play is about? No, I'm talking about Hamlet. If you take Hamlet. It's Claudius, sure. Claudius is the classic tragic hero, isn't he? A man who goes into a position he didn't deserve to be. He kills his brother, takes the throne, marries the widow, finally he's solidifying his crown, and then there's this little problem he hasn't taken care of called the son, who's got a vengeance. So Hamlet is a play which focuses on the same shape, but from the angle not of the hero, but of the person who's out to avenge the hero, almost as though Macbeth were a play called Macduff, right? The tragedy of Macduff. Be very similar. Shakespeare was not, in other words, tied to this shape. And yet you and I, as we watch tragedies, have a tendency to demand that this shape take place. We watch the catharsis story as it goes on. We wait for Macbeth getting his comeuppance. And when he meets Macbeth at the end, you know that one of the heroic moments of theater is when finally this bastard gets taken care of, right? I mean, damn it, we've been waiting and waiting. And then when that baby's head is smashed in that cement, you say, I can't stand this anymore, you want to leave. And then you have the great battle. And Macduff defeating Macbeth is one of the great moments. Well, when Shakespeare varied the theme, he came to a genius variation when he decided to write on the story of King Lear. King Lear is, I think, undoubtedly one of the most unbearable experiences to watch or to read with sensitivity, because he reversed the pattern entirely. If you were using this, the shape of the tragedy would clearly apply not to King Lear, but to his daughters, right? Goneril and Raymond, who take the throne, and to Edmund, who succeed as well. But the shape of King Lear really, and once you understand this, you catch a lot about how the play works on stage, is like this. If you ever see it. Emotionally, what happens is that instead of somebody beginning and acquiring power through his weakness, you have somebody making a tragic mistake, which causes enormous downfall immediately. By the end of Act 1, Lear is almost crazy. Remember? That's how fast it goes. So, instead of Macbeth rising in power, you have Lear falling in power. And throughout the first 3 acts, it's just worse and worse. By the time you're out on the heath, Lear has been driven into insanity. And as the audience, as you watch the play, you think, you know, how far down? I'm only halfway through the play. Will I be able? Will anything happen? And then, of course, the good guys come, don't they? And so the King of France and his loyal daughter come, and they bring their army, and things look just great. Lear is taken by his allies, and he's put on good clothes, put on. Things rise. It looks as though things are going perfectly wonderful, and just as you're ready to go home to a nice good meal and say it's a romance after all, you think you're watching The Winter's Tale, maybe. Bam, right? Like the guillotine on you as you're watching at the end of the play. It's all over. So it descends and then rise, increasing hope in the hearts of the audience, and then wham! No. The mistake made in this play is so important that there's going to be no resolution. And you leave the play with this terrible sense of loss and emptiness. That something has happened. Something has been let loose in the universe. Unlike any of the other plays by Shakespeare. When you watch Macbeth, it's essentially a family tragedy. Mr. and Mrs. Macbeth, make a mistake. Same thing with Hamlet. Do I or do I not kill my uncle? Right? And Othello is very much a ménage à trois. That's going on, or a cat, I suppose, if you think of Iago's wife too. Things going on, but when you watch King Lear, you're watching the universe fall apart. That's just a terrible thing to watch. The only feeling you can have at the end is cosmic exhaustion. Because Lear makes a mistake right at the beginning, not to acquire power, but to give it up. And it destroys him and almost everyone around him. There's nobody left really to speak of at the end of this play, except Olaf, who's a very slowly moving man, a good man, but still too slow to do anything about this. A very interesting phenomenon. Well, what does this mean in terms of tragedy? Take the initial setting of the play. You can think about Lear, or you can think about Richard II, or Henry IV, Part 1. If you were born to be a king, you are a king. When I teach this to students at Eastside, or at the U when I was there, the very first thing you have to address with students is a very simple fact. You don't retire. If you're born to be a miller, you're a miller till you die. There's no 65 and out, right? There's no golden age where you can take trips. Lear is, you know how old Lear is in this play? 84 score and upward, Lear says, not a day less, right? So we can say that he has probably been king, and a lousy king, without a doubt, a willful, right, almost apoplectic man, domineering the extreme for 60 years. And I always ask the kids at the beginning, do you think you have the right to retire? Right? And they always, of course. Right? 80 is long enough to do anything. He should have retired 20 years ago. The kingdom would have been better off if he had, wouldn't it? Even Goneril probably would have been a better ruler in the last 20 years than Lear was. But the fact that Shakespeare is writing in 1600 tells you that you can't. The first thing you understand is, no, you don't. No, you don't. You can see this very clearly when you look at the consequences of the difficulty in Shakespeare of the historic history plays. Remember, Shakespeare's writing in the time when either Elizabeth or James I is on the throne. Right? And in an absolute monarchy such as they ruled, you don't talk about overthrowing kings. And if Shakespeare did, he wouldn't have been on stage. He wouldn't have been allowed to be on stage. He needed the support of the monarchs. But it's a historical problem. England had a long-term warfare among royal houses, as you know, all the result of Edward's 7 sons, and the whole history of England business. Here's Richard II. Wonderful play to watch. Wonderful play to read. All written in the book, the whole thing. Richard II, this great poetic figure. Lousy, lousy king, right? Wastes the country's money, goes fight feudal wars in Ireland, banishes his cousin for no good reason, surrounded by sycophants, people who are yes men, nobody there like Lear's fool to tell him the truth, right? And then Henry comes back, and here's Henry, obviously a competent man, stolid, right? Able, no poetic soul, but who wants a poetic soul in the White House? Right? You want somebody who can do the business. You know how good Eisenhower looks in retrospect. Right? We've had too damn many poets in America, haven't we? You think, well, is it all right for Henry to take this throne away from Richard? And Shakespeare sets up a wonderful conflict in us in the 20th century. Logic says, why not? Right? Send him off to a happy farm, and Richard can poetize until he dies. No, he can't. And the dilemma of the nation in Richard II is, you're stuck with this guy until he dies. And that's it. Right? There's no way out. And Henry IV, Part 1, Henry IV, Part 2, are both plays about the consequence of the unacceptable assumption of the crown by Henry IV when he kicks Richard off and takes over. Henry IV will never have the crown lie easy. And you know why? The same people who helped him get it said, I did it once, I can do it again. Once you destabilize the government, it's destabilized for good. Well, what is Henry IV then? Well, here's Henry IV, an unacceptable king, but what is he? He's the only king you got, right? So Henry IV, Part 1, deals with his attempted defense of the crown against Hotspur, who wants to take the crown from him, using his son Hal, of course, in that purpose. So here's the dilemma. When you have a king, you've got a king. Does it make any difference whether it's a good king or a bad king? Irrelevant. Richard II was a bad king, but he was your king. Henry IV is a good king, essentially, who got the crown in an evil manner, but he's your king. Right? You stand up and fight for him. If you're King Lear, you wear that crown until you die. Something else, power. Right? If you're alive and functioning in Renaissance, you better believe in the power of words, and the relationship between words and power. There are some things you do not say, because once said, they never come back. Right? And what you do not say if you're Lear is, I hereby give you my power. I keep the name and all the addition of king and 109th, but you have the power, and you can't get it back. Right? That is, saying it makes it a fact. So they're like the 3 wishes. Right? You better not say them, no matter how casually, because they'll come true. And this adds another point we want to look at before we get into the play, and that is, all of this has to do with what the Renaissance and Shakespeare would believe to be what is natural, what is proper. It's almost a theological concept, right? Children are meant to be underneath parents. Doesn't make a difference how old they are. Right? Doesn't make a difference how intelligent or how willful they are. If you give your children power over you, expect agony, because you have created an unnatural situation. And much of this play, if you want to read the play before going to see it at ACT or ASHO this summer, watch for any word in this play that deals with what is natural and what is unnatural. Because most of this play is based on that concept. Both plots deal with this. In the one sense, natural in terms of bastardy, right? Which brings in another pair of words. What is legitimate, right? That is what is legal, and what is illegitimate. What is not legal. But those words are attached to the word natural. Edmund is a natural child. Natural in the sense that he's a creation of nature, not a creation of law. Edgar is a creation of law, so he's legitimate. And because he's legal and acceptable in the structure of society, he gets all the property, right? People forget, when they read the play, that Edgar is the older son, isn't he? Edmund, who is the bastard, constantly thinks in terms of him being denied the property because he is a bastard child, and bastard children do not inherit. But it wouldn't make any difference whether he were a bastard or not, because primogeniture would give the title Duke of Gloucester to his older brother, wouldn't it? So he's doubly denied. Edgar tries to defend the natural, the outside of what is the legal structure, right, against the legal, the legitimate. Lear commits the unnatural act of giving power to his children and is destroyed. Both Gloucester and Lear have a major piece of personal knowledge to encounter. Both of these men are blind to the people around them and to the consequences of their acts. Both of them act in a manner which is self-destructive in the extreme because they think they can ignore the consequences of the natural, right, or the illegitimate, or the consequences of their acts of pride, which both of them have. Both of them learned their lesson. And if there is a tragedy in all of Shakespeare, it is reading Lear, speaking to us, and finding out that now at 83, 84, he understands what he was not when he was a king for all those years. In his pride and in his glory, his failure to understand the position of the people. Because the great irony of the play is that at the end of the play, Lear would have been a wonderful king, right? But he had to go through fire, a wheel of fire, as he says, to get it. So I wanted to set the scene. Keep an eye out for anything dealing with nature, anything dealing with legal, as you read the play. Look for all the language in the play that deals with animals. The non-human, the human versus the animal. The daughters are constantly called animals of various types. Lear says, beware the lion and his wrath. These are people who have not accepted the sophisticated relationship of civilized human beings. And as a result of that, they're going to have that problem we're talking about. Let's start off at the beginning. Read the first part of most of Act 1 I'd like to look at. We'll skip over parts of Act 2. There are 4 or 5 major scenes I'd like to do almost word for word. Go with you if I can. The key to this is topsy-turvy. This is a place where things go upside down. Okay? The scene starts off, as is often the case, with a very short scene. Shakespeare uses it, it's called exposition, to set the scene. And the more sophisticated his plays got, the more important these little pieces would be. In the early plays, two people cross the stage, they hardly stop, and then they say, oh, did you hear that the king was taking leave tomorrow for England? Right, well, I heard that his daughter was, and then off you go. So it's bam. It's the Shakespearean equivalent of Alistair Cook, right? This is what it is. But by the time he wrote Lear, Shakespeare was into making these exposition scenes part of the plot. And he did not take time in these more sophisticated plays to have the background material presented to you. This play has already taken place. Everything is already done before the play. The 2 events which are going to cause all this trouble took place before the play begins. One, what is the first one in the subplot? Edward's birth, yes. Gloucester's sexual habits, which created this bastard child, which is going to come back to haunt him as time went on. And the other event, which is a current event, is a decision made by Lear, which is, I'm going to retire. I'm going to retire. Divide my kingdom. So it starts off with Kent and Gloucester. Kent, as you know, will be the classic good retainer. He'll be banished by Lear shortly, and he'll come back in disguise. Here's a fiat, or caveat to the word. If somebody in Shakespeare says he's disguised, he's disguised. No matter how obvious it is, he's disguised. And the only people who know he's not disguised are you and him, right? You know that. So you'll see Shakespeare, and people will come on and say, they'll look like a linebacker for the Chicago Bears, and they'll come on saying, I'm a woman. But the people on stage are just totally oblivious to it, right? So Kent will come back disguised as a servant To you and me, it's obvious, but to the people on stage, no. You're not revealed until you say you're revealed. That's part of the disbelief suspension you must have. Kent and Gloucester come on. It's easier in high school because I grab the kids and make them sort of play it out. So we'll have to do with language here, but visualize as much as you can what we're doing. With them, walking a couple paces behind, is Edmund, who's been away for 9 years. And one word or two about bastards. In Shakespeare's day, a bastard was not the thing it is today. Well, today it's not the thing it used to be. But he would, Gloucester as a nobleman would not hesitate to admit to having children from the wrong side of the sheet. That was just part of life. And it was customary and traditional for you to raise a child and acknowledge it. So it's not quite as bad as we have it, but it's still an insult, obviously. And it's still a comment about the person's morals. And the child has to be raised with that slash on his escutcheon, as time goes on. Kent starts off. I thought the king had more affected the Duke of Albany than Cornwall. In other words, I believe, my opinion is that the king has preferred Albany to Cornwall, traditionally. He's talking here about the separation of the kingdom. Lear has set up a little drama we're going to see very shortly. The drama is a contest for the kingdom. I have 3 daughters. We've divided the kingdom into 3 parts. And I want each of my daughters to tell me how much she loves me. And the one who tells me most convincingly how much she loves me gets the biggest part of England. You understand that? Okay. The point is, and people persist traditionally to understand this, it's all a game. Right? The first trait of Lear's personality you want to catch is that he's an actor. He always wants to be on stage. And everything he does is visually. He wants a public statement of how much his children love him. And he's already divided the kingdom up, and he's already determined who gets what part. So the play has not taken place, but he knows. And naturally, who's going to get the big part? Cordelia, because Mom always loved you best, right? Or Dad always loved you best here. So Kent and Gloucester know what play is going on. Gloucester says, it seemed so to us, but now, in the division of the kingdom, it appears not which of the dukes he values most. For equalities are so weighed that curiosity in neither can make choice of either's moiety. In other words, the closer you look at the 2 parts of the kingdom that Albany and Cornwall will get, what more difficult occurrence will happen. You can't decide which is which. By the way, as an aside, is Kent's point justified? Should the king prefer Albany to Cornwall?
Yes.
Yes. If you take 2 men, Cornwall is the slimiest. And Albany is essentially a good man. What's his problem? He's married to a bitch, right? Let's face it, yeah. He's married to a... I hope that if Goneril applied for membership in this club, you'd turn her down. Would you? Well, Kent then turns and notices Edmund. Is not this your son, my lord? His breeding, sir, has been at my charge. I have so often blushed to acknowledge him that now I am raised to it. I've never seen this done quite the way I want it. I would like always this opening scene to be done in a slyer man-to-man fashion. Right? So I don't think Gloucester would talk this way if it were a woman who asked him, or a woman were present. But you know how men are, right? And I always think that Gloucester ought to dig into me and say, well, I have been accused of his breeding so often that I don't even apologize anymore for it. I have no more blushing. I'm now used to it, so yeah, he's mine. What word here?
Breed.
Yeah, you breed animals, you don't breed human beings. And I want Edmund, who by the way should always be a handsome man. The actor who plays Edmund should be not villainous in appearance. He should be good looking, because he is a good looking man. I want Edmund to be there hearing this language. I want you to see in the first scene the emotional tension underneath. For me, every time I've seen this play, this scene has gone by too fast. This is a charged scene because Edmund's hatred is being established. But usually on stage, the stage manager, the director wants you to get to Lear so fast that this goes by too quickly. Kent says, I cannot conceive you, sir. This young fellow's mother could. Shakespeare will never pass upon, right? Neither will Gloucester. Whereupon she grew round-wombed, and had indeed, sir, a son for her cradle, ere she had a husband for her bed. Do you smell a fault? In other words, you figure it out, which is, she was his mistress, right? I cannot wish the fault undone, the issue of it being so proper. What is Kent's response to all of this when you hear it? Can you catch that? I cannot wish the fault of it being undone. He looks at Edmund and he says,
He's very gentlemanly.
oh, yes, you see, Kent is a gentleman. And he's not going to say anything to make Edmund less comfortable. But Gloucester is insensitive. The man simply does not see. And he's getting such a kick out of, oh boy, was I a rake in my youth, that he just continues right on in spite of Kent's attempts. But I have a son, sir, by order of law, some year elder than this, who yet is no dearer in my account. Though this knave came something saucily to the world before he was sent for, yet was his mother fair. There was good sport at his making, and the whoreson must be acknowledged. Imagine what this does, right? He came a little bit before our evening, wanted him, called for him. Geez, I'll never forget that night. You know, isn't that what he's saying?
Yeah.
Boy, I had a good time, and I guess you just take these one of the consequences of my pleasures. And what's Edmund doing there? Who's he talking about? Him and his mother. Yes, so if anybody has a just reason for anger in this play, obviously it's Edmund. All right. And the public humiliation of it. Who's his father talking to? The Duke of Kent. One of the peers of the realm. So if Edmund has any pride whatsoever, he's being ground into the dust by this speech. Do you know this gentleman, Edmund? No, my lord. My lord of Kent. Remember him hereafter as my honorable friend. My services to your lordship. I must love you and sue to know you better. Sir, I shall study deserving. What do you suppose goes on in Edmund's head when his father says, now, this is my good friend, Kent. Remember that he's my good friend. I'll remember who your friends are when the time comes. Yes. And I will study deserving. I will be, yes, it's all right there. Okay. Now, meanwhile, that ends. In comes the king in full panoply, right? Lear is going to be on stage. He has an ego beyond belief. Lear wants everybody to see that he is the number one. Remember he says at one time in the play, there was a time when I said jump, and everybody said how high, right? They made me feel like I was a god. Anything I said, people said, you're absolutely right. Yes, sirree. That was no good divinity, Lear says. And here he is in that situation, expecting that. Meantime, we shall express our darker purpose. Well, you're going to get the King of France and the Duke of Burgundy. Why does he want... What are the King of France and Burgundy doing here? Anybody remember? Yeah, they're suitors for Cordelia's hand. So there are two things going on, the division of the kingdom and the choice between the two potential husbands. Meantime, we shall express our darker purpose. Give me the map there. Know that we have divided in three our kingdom. And it is our past intent to shake all cares and business from our age, conferring them on younger strengths, while we, unburdened, crawl toward death. Our son of Cornwall, and you, our no less loving son of Albany, we have this hour a constant will to publish our daughter's several dollars, that future strife may be prevented now. Oh, no, talk about irony. I want to crawl quietly towards death without burden. This is to prevent strife. It's nice of him. There's a key word here, by the way, that gives an indication of Shakespeare's state of mind, a traditional one. What is it? Anybody catch in there? We have a constant will, meaning what? All right, unalterable. I've made up my mind. Lear is not amenable to argument. Never has been. The princes, France and Burgundy, great rivals in our youngest daughter's love, long in our court, have made their amorous sojourn, and here are to be answered. Tell me, my daughters, since now we will divest us both of rule, influence of territory, cares of state, which of you, shall we say, doth love us most, that we our largest bounty may extend where nature doth with merest challenge? Goneril, our eldest born. Speak first. Goneril gets the first speech. You don't want to be the first one to do this because the other girls will one up you. And Goneril gives it. Does she know how to play the game? Yes. I mean, this woman has throughout her life known exactly how to get along with this old man, which is pay attention to his whims. And she gives the speech that she had rehearsed. Sir, I love you more than word can wield the matter. Dearer than eyesight, space, and liberty. Notice the first thing. You know what happens later on? Dearer than eyesight. Beyond what can be valued, rich or rare, no less than life with grace, health, beauty, honor, as much as child ever loved our father found, a love that makes breath poor and speech unable, beyond all men, so much, I love you. The more interesting in the speech is what is Lear doing at that moment? Preening. He knows the whole court is there. They're all listening. Look how much my children love me. You just see him popping up. Yeah. A good actor on stage will not just stand there and listen to this, but he will show his pleasure. Cordelia says, "What shall Cordelia speak? No, but he's silent." Of all these bounds, he's got a map. He's pointing it out. Even from this line to this, with shadowy forests and with champaigns rich, with plenteous rivers and wide-skirted meads, we make thee, lady, divine in all these issues, be this perpetual. What says our second daughter, our dearest Regan, wife of Cornwall? God and made itself same level with my sister, and prize me at her worth. In my true heart, I find she names my very deed of love. Only she comes too short, that I profess myself an enemy to all other joys, which the most precious square of sense possesses, and find I am alone felicity in your dear highness love. What does Regan take advantage of? Yes, by being second, she can say, "Mom, my sister says exactly the way I feel, except she just comes a little bit short. Not only do I love you beyond all possible love for our father, but I don't even like anything else in the whole world, right? All the things I love are in you." So, I always imagine a poker hand, they're bidding, right? I mean, this is bluff time. Who can come out on top? And pretty clearly, Regan has one-upped her sister. Cordelia says, "Poor Cordelia, yet not so, since I am sure my love's more ponderous than my tongue. To thee and thine hereditary ever remain this ample third of our fair kingdom, no less in space, validity, and pleasure than that conferred on Goneril. Now, our joy." What is he doing now? Yes, already. Yes, he turns to Cordelia. What does he want more than anything? Yes, but in terms of the scene, what does he want? He wants his pet to tell the world how much she loves him. If the others were all set up, he doesn't really do but this is his fair. Now our joy, although our last one least, to whose young love the vines of France and milk of Burgundy strive to be of interest, what can you say to draw a third more opulent than your sisters? Speak. Nothing. Imagine. Nothing. Nothing will come of nothing. Speak again. This play is filled with ironic lines, which will be denied by the actor of the play. A heck of a lot's going to come of nothing in this play. And he thinks that he can decree such things, and he can't. Unhappy that I am, I cannot heave my heart into my mouth. I love your majesty according to my bond. No more, no less. How now, Cordelia? Mend your speech a little, lest you mar your fortunes. Shakespeare, King Lear is going through a really fascinating psychological state. The play has not been played according to the play. Right? I think there's an element in the speech I just read where he said, "Mend your speech," right? Not mend your answer. Right? He expected speeches, pre-planned statements, hasn't he? And she's not doing the speech. It's almost as though you were watching a play on stage, and all of a sudden the character took off on his own, or her own, and started doing things according to his or her own spirit. And Lear doesn't know. Fix up the speech, essentially, right? Prepare before something comes of this. It's not over. But think of Cordelia's dilemma. High school kids, well, college kids too, as we talk about it, initially tend to think of Cordelia as just the most bull-headedness type of person, right? I mean, what in the world? Why can't she play with the old man? I mean, what good does it do her, right? But why not? And I think most of us feel a touch of that. You can't read the scene without saying it, right? What does the old man want? He wants a pat on the back. What the heck? He's 83 years old. Feed his ego a little bit. True. Why can't she?
She can't join her fake sisters.
Yeah, she can't lie. But would she be lying? I mean, does she love her father? Yes, she does love her father enough to die for him before it's over. So the two sisters lie, right? She comes, he says, how much do you love me? How can she answer that question? How can she answer a question when the terminology, when the means of response have been co-opted by her sisters?
Nothing left to say, is there?
Well, she could say I love you, and she could tell him I love you. But language, what is the currency they're using?
How would she embroider it?
She wouldn't have to embroider it.
She knows her sisters, and she knows that they don't.
She says, I know you.
And she doesn't want to engage in the same kind of thing.
That's true as well. That's true well. But what has happened to words? We do use words to express love. I love you, right? What's happened to the currency of words where it has to do with love in this scene? All right. The sisters have co-opted the currency of exchange, right? The minute she says, I love you, she's into a sequence of competition, but she can't win. Can she go one up above Regan's speech? They have established lie and speechifying, which is what he's asked for, hasn't he? He hasn't asked it for. Lear does not want honesty. He wants a speech for the public consumption, doesn't he? And she has nothing to say because she cannot say anything. All the language of love has been co-opted by her sisters. Oh, no, she knows that they're lying. It's not a matter of intelligence, I don't think at all. I think she's well aware that this is... But do you ever reach the point where you say, I'm not playing this game?
Yeah, feels the words doesn't hurt.
The word is, yes, the currency is destroyed, is counterfeit. The word love doesn't mean love anymore, does it? So if Regan can say, my relationship to you is a relationship of love, she has established a definition of that term which is based upon what Cordelia knows is the true feeling towards her father. So what can Cordelia say? Right? I love you too.
Besides, she knows that he loves her best, and she knows that
Yes.
she loves him, and so
Yeah.
he doesn't want to be for her. She feels it too. He knows.
Yet, don't you believe that if she were by herself, she could say, I love you? Sure.
But she does say it. I most honor you, love you,
That's right.
whatever.
That's right. But I will not play this game.
Right.
That's right. My relationship to you is as it should be, which, by the way, is not what my sisters have towards you. But we can't see that.
Why have they husbands then?
That's right. If they married to love you all, right? Yes. So she can answer that I would like us to give a little sympathy for this woman who finds herself playing a ball game. She's playing badminton and everybody else is playing baseball. I mean, it's impossible. Yeah. Really difficult. And Lear, of course, cannot believe that at this point in his life he's getting a willful response. Nothing will come of nothing. Speak again. Happy that I am, I cannot heave my heart to my bond. I love your majesty according to my bond. No more, no less. And now, Cordelia, mend your speech a little, lest you may mar your fortunes. Good my Lord, you have begotten me, bred me, loved me. I return those duties back as our right fit. Obey you, love you, and most honor you. Why have my sisters husbands if they say they love you all? Haply, when I shall wed that Lord whose hand must take my place, shall carry half my love with him, half my care and duty. Sure, I shall never marry like my sisters, to love my father with all. But goes thy heart with this? Why, my Lord? So young, and so untender, so young, my Lord, and true. Now Lear has to do something, because he's on stage. This is not in the private apartment of the castle. He's got to take the power of the stage. He is largely condemned by his need to be on stage. Let it be so. So be it. Right? Amen. Thy truth then be thy dower. And then he knows the speech is to the public. For by the sacred radiance of the sun, the mysteries of Hecate and the night, see, this is pre-Christian England, by all the operation of the orbs from whom we do exist and cease to be, here I disclaim all my maternal care, propinquity and property of blood, and as a stranger to my heart and me hold thee from this forever. The barbarous Scythian, or he that makes his generation messes to gorge his appetite, shall to my bosom be as well neighbored, pitied, and relieved, as thou, my sometime daughter. Okay? Besides, something's got to be done to stop this, because Lear is pontificating in a way which is that good, my liege. Peace can't come not between the dragon and his wrath. That's one of the first of these words to look for. He sees himself as a dragon, right? Don't stick your head in the mouth of the lion. He is wrathful, but he's 83 years old. And you're not going to be a dragon if you don't have your power. He's going to defang himself very shortly. I loved her most, and brought to set my rest on her kind nursery. Hence, and avoid my sight. So be my grave, my peace, as here I give her father's heart from her. Call France. Who stirs? What happened? What does that tell you? No, it's the opposite. He says, call France. So what happens? Nothing happens. Why? No. He says, call France. He's going to call. He's going to get rid of her. But who stirs? Meaning? Well, the whole audience is... which she calls plainness, marry her. I do invest you jointly with my power of preeminence and all the large effects that troop with majesty. Ourself, by monthly course, with reservation of 100 knights, by you to be sustained, shall our abode make with you by due turn. Only we shall retain the name and the addition of the king. The sway, revenue, execution of the rest, beloved sons, be yours, which to confirm this coronet part between you all. Okay, he's made the big mistake. That is a speech you read over quickly, but that is the speech where he gives up his power. And from now on, he has nothing. What is he reserved? What is he reserved? Okay. He has 100 knights who are to be his retinue, I suppose you'd say. I give you, he says, I retain the name and all the addition of a king. But the sway, revenue, execution of the rest are yours. What does he mean by the name and the addition? But what do you mean by goodies? Okay, he is still, who is the King of England? He is. And the addition means he gets all of the honors and respect, doesn't it? So Goneril and Regan are not the queens of England, are they? They are still the duchesses of Albany and Cornwall. He is still the king, but he has nothing to support his power except 100 knights. That's it. He has made a mistake. You don't get kingship without power. The two do not go together. Today, yeah, Elizabeth could retire and retain the title, couldn't she? But she doesn't have any power now either, so she's not losing anything if she retires. But in his day, kingship meant power. And of course, do Goneril and Regan understand this from the beginning?
Yes.
The reason for what they do is confusing and interesting. And there's no justification for the misery they put their father through. But all the same, the political reason for them wanting his knights out of hand, gone, and wanting him either thoroughly dominated or in jail or dead are pretty clear, if you know the history of England. No king abdicated from the British throne lives very long. Right? Once he's done, it's just not tolerable. To Richard III, it wasn't tolerable. It wasn't tolerable to Henry IV or anybody else. You've got to kill those, even those princes in the Tower have to go because the title meant power. I think, go skip over a little bit and then take a short break. Here's the point where Kent interferes. He says, Royal Lear, whom I have ever honored as my king, loved as my father, as my master followed, as my great patron thought on in my prayer. The bow is bent and drawn, make from the shaft. What's the image? Yes, emotionally, don't get in between me. The arrow's aimed at you. But Kent simply cannot, does he? Let it fall, rather, though the fork invade the region of my heart. Be Kent unmannerly when Lear is mad. One of the first of the lines which indicate the reverse of realities, right, of proper relationships. If you're going crazy, then I don't have to be mannerly any longer. Things are upside down. What is the king to be? The fount of wisdom, right? The fount of wisdom is what the king. But you're crazy. You're doing something, and what is a loyal retainer supposed to be? Mannerly and subservient. But things are upside down. What wouldst thou do, old man? Have you noticed there? Yes, he's lost the subtle. Thinkest thou that duty shall have dread to speak, but power to flattery bows? To plainness honor's bound, when majesty falls to folly. Reserve thy state, and in thy best consideration check this hideous rashness. Answer my life judgment, thy youngest daughter does not love thee least. Nor are those empty-hearted whose low sounds reverb no hollowness. Kept on thy life no more. He says, out of my sight. Kent says, see better, Lear. See better. Will he see better? But not for a long time. He banishes Kent, gives him 5 days to leave. Burgundy and France come back. And what do you find out about these two men when Lear says the truth that she's getting nothing except the sackcloth on her back? But he offers Burgundy the first choice, and Burgundy says, excuse me, he says, pardon me, sir, election does not make upon such conditions. Do you want her or not? I need to think about this. And then what does France say? All by herself, she is a dowry. Be glad to have her. One of my students gave me an insight that I missed after all these years. When we have the line, I said, the fool who says that he did his third daughter how's the line go? He did his third daughter against her will. He did her a favor against her will. And everybody's, all my friends and everybody I know who's taught it and read it has felt that I'm getting her out of the kingdom and away from this. And one of my students this winter said, Mr. Culbert, how else would she have known who was the right husband for her? Right? And that this is if she could have married Burgundy, that jerk, right? Instead, she found somebody who loved her, and so he did her a much greater favor than he ever intended to do by this business. And I thought, out of the mouths of babes, he teaches for years. She's quite a babe too, I have to admit. So. No, I'm just joking. And so France takes this. The king agrees to point out when Cordelia insists that her banishment and poverty is not a result of a moral failing, and France says, all right, she's fine. And as they go off, end of Act 1, Scene 1, Regan and Goddard are left on stage. Sister is not little, I have to say, but most nearly appertains to us both. I think our Father will hence tonight. That's most certain, and with you next month with us. You see how full of changes his age is. The observation of it we have not been, have they noticed that this man is erratic? Yeah. He always loved our sister most. Every time I read that, I think of the mother's brothers, Tommy and Nicky. The end of Act 1, Scene 1, the last section there. He always loved our sister most, and with what poor judgment he hath now cast her off appears too grossly. The sisters know Right? What a stupid fool this old man is. He's not only rash, but he's senile now, isn't he? Sure, she said, 'tis the infirmity of age. Yet he hath ever, but slenderly known himself. You must watch for lines like that, because we get so little about the past of Lear. We know nothing about Mrs. Lear, which offends my young female students at Eastside. Everybody wants to know what that woman was like, and I figure she died in misery being married to this jerk. But she's totally not there. The daughters, however, and people who know him make it quite clear that he always was a man very easily out of control. He knew himself slenderly. Yes. There's no reason not to believe the daughters here. The best and soundest of his time have been but rash. Then must we look from his age to receive not alone the imperfections of long and graft condition, but therewithal the unruly waywardness that infirm and choleric years bring with them. Such inconstant starts are we like to have from him as this of Kent's banishment. Let's think about what we can do. Okay, let's take a short break and come back to another really fine scene for the second hour. We will come back to these because Edmund's speech at the beginning of this next scene is important, but as long as we're working with King Lear, I want to work our way up to his, "Oh fool, let me not be mad." I would like to make sure today that we get so far that we can see how the daughters put the pressure on. Psychologically, really fascinating. There's a little bit in this play reminiscent of the opening passages of Henry James' novel, What Maisie Knew. Do you know the novel? Henry James says, as the novel begins, a wonderful book, that Maisie is the consequences of an unhappy divorce, and that the father and mother hate her. And since each thinks that the other one wants the daughter, they fight over possession until each of them realizes that neither one wants her. And that Maisie is a badminton, like a badminton birdie between these two adults, and it's whack this way and whack that way. And so her psyche is being abused by these adults. And every time I read the next scenes of Lear and his elder daughters, as they play their game with him, I'm reminded of that. That Lear, he's old and reverend with white hairs, but he's a badminton birdie. And these women know what they're doing. It's a game. They are going to gradually put the screws on him until he is literally crazy. And another concept to keep in mind as you think about the play is the meaning of sanity and insanity. It's another pair in the play, because the safety of Edgar, as his brother goes after his property, is going to be playing the role of an insane man. The punishment of Lear is going to be true insanity. So you're going to have a man who pretends he's crazy and then a real crazy man. Lear is driven into insanity and, of course, finds a kind of truth there in a very 20th century way. The other phenomenon I think that will leap to your mind as you watch Honorable Regan play with him is that of a couple of cats playing with a mouse. Right? We're going to have very deeply put into our consciousness Lear's powerlessness. He has no power, and this is the consequence of giving it up. So let's turn to Act 1, Scene 4. Make it Act 1, Scene 3, the short beginning there. Goneril is talking to her slimeball servant Oswald, one of the favorite people to hate by high school students. Did my father strike my gentleman for chiding of his fool? Aye, madam. By day and night he wrongs me. She's finding a reason to hate, right, her father. Every hour he flashes into one gross crime or another that sets us all at odds. I'll not endure it. Say I'm sick when he returns from hunting. I'm not going to speak to him. If you come slack of former services, you shall do well. The fault of it I'll answer. What's her first tactic in this battle against her father's sanity? Neglect him, yes. Make it an obvious refusal to respond. Remember, Lear is the man who snapped his fingers and people jump. It's not going to happen now. I am an old man, Goneril says, that still would manage those authorities that he hath given away. Now, by my life, old fools are babes again, and must be used with checks and its flatteries when they are seen abused. What did she just say about her father? The world is upside down, right? Old fools have become babies, and how do you treat babies? You treat them with checks and flatteries. Check here means, what does check mean in this sense? To restrain, yes, but we would say spankings, right? When a little kid acts up, you give him a pounding in the bottom, right? Lear has never been checked in his life. And so just as you compliment a child when he does well, you punish him when he doesn't. And we will train Dad into his new role of childhood. Yes, marvelous. Okay, Kent comes in disguised, as you can see, presents himself to Lear, and at that moment Oswald comes in. So Act 1, Scene 4, about line 39. How old art thou? Kent says, not so young, sir, to love a woman for singing, nor so old to dote on her for anything. I have years on my back, 48. Follow me. Thou shalt serve me. If I like thee no worse after dinner, I will not part from thee yet. Dinner? Oh, dinner! Where's my maid? My fool. Go you, and call my fool hither. You, Sirrah, where's my daughter? So please you, what's happening on stage in that scene? Yes. What does Oswald do? He walks right by. First time. It's a marvelous scene psychologically to watch it. He doesn't even turn. Oh, so please you, I have other things to do. What says the fellow there? Call the clotpole back. Where's my fool? Oh, I think the world's asleep. I love that, right? Nobody's reacting properly. How now? Where's that mongrel? He said, my lord, your daughter is not well. Well, I came not to slay back to him, and I called him. Sir, if he answered me in the roundest manner, he would not. He would not. What's inside that little line? Incredulity, right? Yes. You want to read the line with your eyes open enough that you can see what's going on inside the head of the person as he's thinking. Nobody in 83 years has ever said no to the king. So it's almost as though it's a foreign language, isn't it? And when Lear repeats the line, he doesn't understand the words, does he? What? He would not. My lord, I know not what the matter is, but to my judgment, your highness is not entertained with the ceremonious affection as you were wont. Now here's the courtier, right? They're stiffing you in the face, right? It's what he needs. But naturally, because he's a servant of the king, he just doesn't seem quite like, the old love of the old king. There's a general abatement of kindness appears. What does that mean? As well as the general dependence as in the Duke himself also. When you, sayest thou so? Same incredulity. My goodness. I beseech you, pardon me, my lord, if I be mistaken, for my duty cannot be silent when I think your highness wrong. Thou but rememberest me of mine own conception. I have perceived a most faint neglect of late, which I have rather blamed as mine own jealous curiosity than as a very pretense and purpose of unkindness. I will look further into it, but where is my fool? I have not seen him these 2 days. Oh, the fool is pined away. No more of that. I noted it well. Here comes Oswald. You, sir. Come you hither, sir. Who am I, sir? No, I shouldn't say it like that. Who am I, sir? My lady's father. Yes, no. My lady's father, and my lord's knave, you horse and dog, you slave, you cur. I have none of these, my lord. I beseech your pardon. Do you bandy looks with me, you rascal? Wham! Right across the face. They're just obviously none of this would be allowed at all. You rascal! I will not be struck, my lord. And then Kent comes in to the rescue. Nor tripped up either, you base football player. Down he goes. I thank thee, fellow. Thou service me. I love thee. He gives him a coin from his pocket. Come, sir, arise away. I'll teach you differences. Meaning what? I'll teach you differences. I'll teach you who to respect, right? You servant, this is the King of England. I'll teach you something. Away, away. If you measure your lover's length again, Tarry, but go away, go to. Have you wisdom, sir? He pushes him out. Now, my friendly here's earnest of thy service. The fool comes in. One of the great creatures of Shakespeare, right? Let's stop for 1 minute to catch what the fool represents. The problem with Richard II is he didn't have any fool. And it's the problem with Richard the Nixon as well. Right? In an autocratic government of the Middle Ages, you get the evolution of a particular character in the court. It's really interesting, especially in literary terms. All of his life, Lear knew that people would agree to whatever he said. You must, apparently there must have felt someplace in the structure of things a need for at least one position in a court which was not necessarily responsive to the ego of the king. Okay? Everybody else has to make the king happy. So it's made of yes men. And the evolution of medieval court created the position of the fool, who's dressed in motley, right? In other words, looks like a fool, whose job is to make things funny. He originally was just a jester. I watched Annie Kate in the court jester last night. It was just hilarious. My daughter was rolling on the floor in laughter. The jester, because he was supposed to be funny, evolved into the person at the court who could say the truth. Through humor, he could say the truth. He has a position of freedom from severe punishment for what he does. And he becomes then the safety valve in the court. Somebody has to tell Lear the truth. Nobody else dares to do it. I felt for a long time that we need this in our government. History has shown, for example, that probably the greatest failure of the court of Lyndon Johnson was his failure to have somebody there who could speak straight to him. Lyndon Johnson was a dominating personality, as you know, and everybody was terrified of him. Even Humphrey was terrified of him. And you needed to have somebody in the court to say, Lyndon, this is the truth. America's falling apart. We need to do something about it, and nobody did. I think our democracy is severely damaged by the lack of a fool to do it. Political statement.
We need one now.
We always. I think you'd all agree. That's not a matter of partisan politics. That's right. The ability to see, right, not to barricade yourself, is something that a leader needs, and we have been harmed in our country by not having it. So the fool can be punished only so far. Lear makes it clear. How far can you punish the fool traditionally? What can he do to the fool if he oversteps his bounds?
Beheaded.
No, he will not do that.
Hit him with the pig's bladder?
Oh, well, no, that's his gimmick. Whip, he said, beware of the whip. Beware of the whip, right? The fool can be, but when he's overstepped, that's it. The fool will not be beheaded the way other people who are serious people will be beheaded.
Why not?
Because he's protected by his position, his custom. I mean, obviously the king could do it, but the king would never have another fool to tell the truth, and society demands certain things of the king as well. Subtle.
Is that because the fool is not to be taken seriously?
No, but because the fool covers his seriousness under humor, which makes it possible for the king to avoid hearing and hear at the same time. Right? That is, if you come up and say to the king, "You're a fool," he'll have to react. But if you say it in a riddle or a rhyme, the fool can say the message, the king can hear it, and the king can use the humor to avoid the consequences. And if you see this done well on stage, it's pretty clear that Lear loves the fool. He loves the fool. He's very, very close to him. He does, yes. The fool is one of 2 or 3 people faithful to the king when it's over. So here he is. He comes in. Here's earnest of thy service. Fool comes in. Let me hire you too. Here's my coxcomb. What's a coxcomb? Yeah, the fool's cap. Yes. Sirrah, oh, how now, pretty knave, how dost thou? Sirrah, you were thus take my coxcomb. Why, fool, why? For taking one's part, that's all the favor. Nay, and thou canst not smile as the wind sits, thou catch cold shortly. There, take my coxcomb. Why, this fellow has banished 2 of his daughters, and did the 3rd a blessing against his will. If thou must needs wear my coxcomb, how now, go. He says to the king, what does he mean by, why does he offer his cap to Cantor? What does he fail to perceive? If you don't smile as the winds, if you do not smile as the wind sits, you'll catch cold. Meaning, what is Kent not aware of? Sure, the prevailing winds. He's trying to sail into the wind. And the fool knows that he may have no choice because Goneril hates his guts. But Kent is doing something stupid. He is publicly lining himself up with the king, and the king has no power. So you are obviously a fool. Take my coxcomb. Oh, now, uncle, would I had 2 coxcombs and 2 daughters. Why, my boy, if I gave them all my living, I'd keep my coxcombs myself. Here's mine. Take another one of my daughters. Who else is a fool?
Who else?
Yes, he says everybody's taking my job. There's nothing left for me. Take heed, sirrah. The whip. Was that a little too close for Lear? I know. Truth's a dog, must to kennel. He must be whipped out when the lady Brock may stand by the fire of state. The world is upside down. Truth is like a dog sent out to the backyard, right? A dog is the male hound. A bitch is the female, right? What's happened here? The female dog, in heat, probably, is allowed to stand in front of the fire and get warm and stink up the house, whereas the male dog, who doesn't have any smell, is sent out to the backyard, right? The fool says this is
It's all upside down.
no, everything's upside down. Everything's upside down. What pestilent God. Does Lear catch the... Yes, he knows, you know. Sarah, I'll teach thee a speech. Do. Mark it, uncle. More than thou shouldst speak, less than thou knowest, learn less than thou owest, ride more than thou goest, learn more than thou throwest, and less than thou throwest. Be thy drink and thy whore, and keep in a door, and thou shalt have more than 2 tens the score. What is that song about? Have more than you show, speak less than you know. Don't give up, hang on to your IRA. Right? Lear has given up everything. And so speech tells you, if you don't reserve a little for yourself, don't rest on the pity of your children in your old age. This is nothing, fool. Then 'tis like the breath of an unfeed lawyer. What do you get for a lawyer if you don't pay him anything?
Nothing.
No, you gave me nothing for it. Can you make no use of nothing? No, you can see the word nothing. No. Oh, I know, my boy. Nothing can be made out of nothing. Prithee, come in. So much the rent of his land comes to. He will not believe a fool. See, right? No income. A bitter fool. Dost thou know the difference, my boy, between a bitter fool and a sweet one? No, lad, teach me. That Lord that counsel thee to give away my land, come place him here by me, do thou for him stand. The sweet and bitter fool will presently appear, the one in motley here, the other found out there. Dost thou call me fool, boy? He's not the brightest man in the world, right? Does he get the message? Yeah. Did you just, that won't mean that all that untitled thought is given away. That's all I was born with. This is not altogether fool, my lord. There's a little bit of intelligence in this. No faith. Lords and great men will not let me. If I had a monopoly out, they would have behind on it. And ladies, too, they will not let me have all the fool to myself. They'll be snatching. Uncle, give me an egg, and I'll give you 2 crowns. What 2 crowns shall they be? Why, after I have cut the egg in the middle and ate up the meat, the 2 crowns of the egg. When thou clovest thy crown in the middle and gavest away both parts, thou borest thine ass on the back, thy back, or the dirt. Thou hadst little wit in thy bald crown, when thou gavest thy golden one away. But what is the crown? He's playing on 2 meanings of crown. What are the 2 meanings? Yes, the crown is you cut an egg in half, eat it up, you'll have 2 crowns. And of course, he doesn't have anything in his bald crown. So Lear should be bald on the top with hair on the sides, right? According to the speeches. If I speak like myself in this, let him be whipped that first finds it so. The Lear says, when were you wont to be so full of song, sirrah? I have used it, uncle, ever since thou madest thy daughters thy mothers. For when thou gavest them the rod,
and puttest down thine own breeches, like a child, yes. Then they for sudden joy did weep, and I for sorrow sung, that such a king should play Bo Peep and go the fools among. He apparently is singing more than he used to, because things are so upside down that he has to use music to communicate. The music covers up the meaning. But you catch the seriousness behind it? That's such a king. Was Lear a king? Every inch a king. Remember? Aye. As the fool says, that's such a man. Whatever he was, for all of his mistakes, he was a king, and now. So the fool covers up the truth with not only riddles and humor, but with music as well. Yes. And go among, prithee, nuncle, keep a schoolmaster that can teach thy fool to lie. I would fain learn to lie. If you lie, sirrah, we'll have you whipped. I marvel what kin thou and thy daughters are. They'll have me whipped for speaking true. Thou'lt have me whipped for lying. And sometimes I'm whipped for holding my peace. I'd rather be any kind of thing than a fool. And yet I would not be thee, nuncle. As parents, I whip both sides and left nothing in the middle. Ooh, here comes one of the parents. And in comes Goneril. You see the fool's dilemma? I lie if I tell the truth. I get whipped for lying, get whipped for telling the truth, and get whipped for keeping silent. I'd rather be anything but a fool. Yes. How now, daughters? What makes that frontlet on? What does he mean by frontlet?
Frown.
Yes, she's got her. You're too much of late in the frown. Thou wast a pretty fellow, and thou hast no need to care for her frowning. Now thou art an O without a figure, meaning what? A zero without a digit in front of it, right? 5 zeros in a row are nothing, but put a 5 in front of that, you've got something. You used to be something, and now you're nothing. I am better than thou art now. I'm a fool. Thou art nothing. What's she doing? Goneril's coming towards him with a vengeance in her eye. Oh, yes, I will hold my tongue. I was see. So your face bids me, though you say nothing. Zip, 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 you say. He that keeps nor crust nor crumb, weary of all shall want some. Is that right? You give everything away, you still want some crust. Goneril picks right up on this, and he goes on. She hates the fool, isn't she? You're all licensed fool. All licensed, by the way, means what? Can't do anything he wants. Yeah. Not only, sir, this your all licensed fool, but other of your insolent retinue do hourly carp and quarrel, breaking forth in rank and not to be endured riots. Sir, I had thought by making this well known unto you, you had found a safe redress, but now grown fearful that what yourself too late have spoken and done, that you protect this course and put it on by your allowance, which if you should, the fault would not escape censure, nor the redresses sleep, which in the tender of a wholesome wheel might in their working do you that offense, which else were shame. That then necessity will call discreet proceeding. For you know, Nuncle, the hedge sparrow fed the cuckoo so long that its head bit off by its young. Is that right? You know this about how cuckoos lay their nests and the other brings eggs, right? It grows up and its own children are destroyed by the cuckoo's child, which grows so fast. So out went the candle and we were left dark. Lear on the stage. Now watch this as a competition for the stage. This scene. Are you our daughter? Right? He's still using the royal we, isn't he? I would you would make good use of your wisdom and put away these dispositions which of late transport you from what you rightly are. May I not an ass know when the cart draws the horse? Whoop, shut up, I love thee. You notice that? What's her response to his question? She's no response at all, right? Who is in charge of this scene on stage? She is not playing. She will not speak the speech. So he's ready to start another scene. Are you our daughter? She should say, why yes, I am your daughter. And then he can go on and say, what is the proper relationship of daughter to father? Right? No games. You had your chance, Act 1, Scene 1, but this is not Act 1, Scene 1. No. Does any here know me? Are there other people around? Sure. Yeah. This is not Lear. Does Lear walk thus? Speak thus? Where are his eyes? Either his notion weakens, his discerning the lethargy. Waking. 'Tis not so. Who is it that can tell me who I am? Lear's shadow. I would learn that. For by the marks of sovereignty, knowledge, and reason, I should be false persuaded I have daughters. In other words, there's plenty of evidence that I am a man and a king with children. Right? If you go, but see, the point about the play is once you make the mistake he makes at the beginning, you don't. The world is not run. And you don't expect it to be run on reason, on knowledge, the way things ought to be done. See, he's let loose it off in war, and that reason is not behind it. I should be false persuaded. I had daughters, which they will make an obedient father. He turns to her. Your name, fair gentlewoman? It's admiration, sir. This is much of a savor of other your new pranks. What's her response? Does she answer the question? No, she comes back with, this is exactly what I'm talking about, right? This stupidity, this foolishness you're going through right now, just what we're talking about. I do beseech you to understand my purposes aright. As you are old and reverend, you should be wise. Here do you keep 100 knights and squires, men so disordered, so debauched and bold, that this our court, infected with their manners, shows like a riotous inn. Epicurism and lust makes it more like a tavern or a brothel than a grace palace. The shame itself doth speak for instant remedy. Be then desired by her that else will take the things she begs, a little to disquantity your train. Who is the strong and who is the weak, you see? He wants to be the one in charge of the scene, and she just takes right over. And moreover, she said it as plainly as it could be. You are turning this graced palace into a brothel or a tavern. Be then desired by her who else will take the things she begs. What do you call that? An ultimatum, isn't it? Right? You do it of your own will, which is not, of course, your own will. But if you don't do it, I will do it. For the tower, you know who's got it. Yeah. And the remainders that still depend to such men as may besort your age. In other words, I'll let you have a few old men, yes, yeah, which know themselves darkness and devils. Does he respond to her? No, they don't. None of these speeches respond to the language at all. He goes off into a fit. Now saddle my horse, call my train together, degenerate bastard. Is she a bastard? Oh, no, but that would be nice if she were. I'll not trouble thee yet, have I a daughter. You strike my people. Does she respond to that? Oh, and your disordered rabble make servants of their betters. Woe that too late repents. Oh boy, these little phrases sometimes hit you, right? True? Yes, too late. Oh, sir, how you come? Albany comes in. Is it your will? Speak, sir. Prepare my horses. Gratitude, thou marble-hearted fiend, more hideous when thou showest thee in a child than the sea monster. Pray, sir, be patient. Who is the only reasonable man, by the way? Albany, yes, but he's totally out of control of his wife, right? She's in charge. Is that right? Ingratitude? A child? Yes. Yeah. Detested kite, thou liest! Who does he turn on? Yeah, it's one of the difficulties of reading Shakespeare is that you don't see visually. Albany comes in and he speaks to him. But Lear is starting to crack. That is, his emotions are taking over him. When Albany speaks to him, he doesn't respond because he's still he's angered. So he turns back to her. Detested kite, thou liest! My train are men of choice and rarest parts, that in all particulars of duty know, and in the most exact regard support the worships of their name. Oh, most small fault, how ugly didst thou in courtesy show, which like an engine wrenched my frame of nature from the fixed light, drew from my heart all love, and added to the gall. Oh, Lear, 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 beat at this gate that let thy folly in, and thy dear judgment out. Is the beginning. And this is still the same Lear who's angry and starting to perceive what he's done. But he's not crazy yet, okay? But is he right? What a stupid fool I was. What a fool I was. As he hits his head. Oh, you know, what happened to me? And you see the line? Which like an engine, right, wrenched my frame of nature from the fixed place. Right? A little mistake. And almost as though I had been taken by a block and tackle, and my love for this daughter, who was his favorite from childhood, was just destroyed, just like that, right? Frame of nature, that the unnatural has taken place. Albany comes up. He's a sort of a dither, you know. My lord, I'm guiltless. I'm ignorant of what hath moved you. It may be so, my lord. Here, nature, here. He's got the stage. Remember, this is all he's speaking to nature now. Lear still thinks he's got the stage. He will not win this battle already. So he thinks like Richard II, that a good plea to the gods of nature might survive. Here, dear goddess, here, suspend thy purpose if thou didst intend to make this creature fruitful. Into her womb convey sterility, dry up in her the organs of increase, and from her derogate body ever spring a babe to honor her. Well, you know, curses are great, but they don't buy any meat, do they? And they don't hire any knights. And what's Goneril doing? Right? Yeah, you can't read this one without thinking of Lady Macbeth's speech, can you? I could take the babe from my breast, right? If I wanted to do it. You know, what a difference between Lady Macbeth, who's giving us an authentic insight into that woman's willful personality, right? She would, wouldn't she? I mean, she would. I am in charge. She's so much more a man than her husband. And Lear's pomposity. And Goneril sitting there, saying, it's just what I'm talking about, right? The old man always loses his temper, right? Here he is, cursing, and a fat lot of good is going to do it. Right? You got to see the scene, not just in Lear's condemnation, but in the effect of the people around him. Not like the first scene. With cadent tears, fret channels in her cheeks, turn all her mother's pains and benefits to laughter and contempt, that she may feel how sharper than a serpent's tooth it is to have a thankless child. Away! Away! And out he runs. Always a gods that we adore. Where are the gods? Oh, the kids hate Albany at this point. This nerd, you know, ready to stand up. Goneril says, never afflict yourself to know more of it, but let his disposition have that scope as dotage gives it. So after this huge, wonderful speech with a famous line even, right, what does Goneril say? We want evidence of senility? You got it, right? You just let these poor, it's like happy homes, you know, for old people, let them sit there and gather and dribble from their mouths, you know, that's all they're doing. Lear comes back in. What? 50 of my followers! Sorry, yes. And a glad. Within a fortnight. What's the matter, sir? I will tell thee. Life and death I am ashamed that thou hast power to shape my manhood thus, that these hot tears which break from me perforce should make thee worth them. Blast and fogs upon thee, the untested woundings of a father's curse pierce every sense about thee. Old fond-eyed Fontaine, foolish, yes. Old fond eyes, beweep this cause again. I'll pluck you out and cast you with the waters that you lose to temper clay. Yea, come to this. Let it be so. I have another daughter who I am sure is kind and comfortable. When she shall hear this of thee with her nails, she'll flay thy wolfish visage. Thou shalt find that I'll resume the shape which thou dost think I have cast off forever. Is he going to resume that shape?
No.
That's what I meant by keeping an eye on the power of words. Once he gives it up, he can't take it back. You know, it's not like starting a fresh game of Monopoly. You know, everybody gets the money all over again. Once he says, I give you this power, the only way he can get it back is to have it given to him by the person who's got it, or to do it through victory in war. And that means you need troops. His only hope is victory by the King of France and Cordelia. And even that is going to be unlikely. He goes off. Do you mark that? Albany starts off sort of a pompous. I cannot be so partial, Goneril. To that brave love I bear you. Pray you, content. But what's the relationship of husband and wife? Shut your mouth, dearie. I've got business to do. Oswald, home. You, sir, more knave than fool. After your master. Uncle Lear, can I take the fool with thee? Oh, okay, off they go. So we get a message. She tells Oswald to go and let Regan know ahead of time, remember? Before King Lear gets there, about what's happened. The two sisters are going to work together to, in the next great scene, to make for his insanity. Act 1, Scene 5. Lear, Kent, and the Fool. We'll come to the end of this. Go you before to Gloucester with these letters. Acquaint my daughter. So Kent goes off with the letters, leaving the Fool and Lear. The Fool says, if a man's brains or his heels were not in danger of kibes. Kibes are chilblains. Right? So if your brains were in your feet, would they, when they got wet and cold, wouldn't they be in danger of getting chills? Your brain? Aye, boy. And I pray thee be merry, thy wit shall not go slipshod. He says. Shalt see thy other daughter will use thee kindly. But this isn't kindly, this is a pun on kindly. Your other daughter will use you in her kind, right? In the manner of her kind. For though she's as like this as a crab's like an apple, yet I can tell what I can tell. What canst tell, boy? She will taste as like this as a crab does to a crab. What's the point? If you look at the two daughters, do they look alike? I don't know, one is old and not so handsome, well, the other one is usually quite beautiful. But though they look like a crab looks like an apple, if you eat them, you'll find out they taste exactly alike. Thou canst tell why one's nose stands in the middle of one's face? No. Why, to keep one's eyes out of either side of the nose, that what a man cannot smell out, he may spy into. I did her wrong. Meaning what? Something to watch closely whenever the Fool's there. The Fool, so it's never said in so many words, the Fool has taken on a task. The task is to keep Lear outer directed as opposed to inner directed. Lear is now beginning to move into himself, and it's the moving into himself that's going to make for his insanity, right? And so the Fool will constantly be sort of poking him and saying, here's a riddle for you, and then Lear will turn to the Fool and answer. And then the Fool will say, sometimes Lear will be back in here again. Unless Lear is kept focused out, he will lose his mind. And of course he's going to. The Fool cannot maintain it. But this is the beginning of that movement inside. He's asking a riddle, and obviously Lear is thinking, I did her wrong. Canst thou tell how an oyster makes his shell? No. Nor I neither, but I can tell why a snail has a house. Why? Why, to put his head in and not to give it away to his daughters, and leave his horns without a case. I will forget my nature. So kind the Father. Has he responding to the Fool now? No. Often if you stop in there and think, you catch whole dialogues that are hidden underneath the language. Be my horses ready. Thy asses are gone about him. The reason why the 7 stars are not more than 7 is a pretty reason. Because they are not 8. Yes, indeed. Now, what's make a good fool? To take it again, perforce. Meaning what? What's going on in his mind now? To go back and do what? To take what again? Power, yes. To get army, and to go back to these daughters, right, and take the power, perforce. Monster ingratitude. You notice the non sequitur, right? His mind is flipping back and forth. What can I do? What is being done to me? What relationship do they have? Monster ingratitude. If thou wert my fool, Uncle, I'd have thee beaten for being old before thy time.